Good evening and welcome. I am Mayor Deirdre Waterman, proudly representing this fine city of Pontiac and its citizens. We welcome you to this town hall on which we are going to talk about the new public-private partnership for the Phoenix Center that we have negotiated over a amount of time, and in which the City Council has joined with us in presenting this option for the citizens of Pontiac. We've invited you all, whether you're residents, businesses, community or faith leaders, elected officials, advocates, ambassadors, or associates of the city, stakeholders in any way, or even just interested bystanders who stand witness to the progress the city has had. We're happy to have you as we discuss this very important topic for the city of Pontiac. We've staged this town hall today to give you the real facts and the real vision of what this deal is regarding the Phoenix Center and Ottawa Towers, and how this holds a transformational vision for the city of Pontiac. We know there is a lot of interest in the resolution of this issue and this problem that I inherited from the emergency manager. Look back a while. When I first became mayor, the city had been in litigation over this matter. And in fact, it was such a desperate situation with the city flat broke that the mediation that had been conducted by the emergency manager the solution was to give away the whole Phoenix Center property for $1. We've come a long way since then. Back at that time, as I became mayor and inherited this problem to find a way of solving it, the first thing I did was open up Orchard Lake Avenue, which had been blocked. And people had to drive all around the city. Remember that? That was the first step. Taken a lot of steps, a lot of negotiation. Now the city is in a finer financial position, and we have now found equity partners who, like us, share the vision for all the things that this Phoenix Center can do to help to develop economic and community development in the city of Pontiac. We have a fine panel here who's here to give you the details about that situation, to tell you about how this deal has shaped up, and to give you the prospect for the future. Here with me today, and I will introduce them as they're ready to speak. First is attorney Matthew Gibb, Matt Gibb, who is the special counsel to the city of Pontiac that is here for real estate development issues. We also have Bob Wan, representing Dearborn Capital, the equity partner who has shared the vision with us of what this deal can bring to the city. And he's here to affirm the other intangible parts of this public-private partnership, in addition to the dollars and cents on the advantages for the city, which is a win-win for our citizens. He also shares the vision of what this can bring for other strategic initiatives, such as jobs, apprenticeships programs as part of the construction, as well as economic development, as well as other kinds of visions and prospects that he will tell you about, and affirm that we have negotiated as we both share this vision of what this can be to make a transformational situation for the city of Pontiac. And then also we have Lynette Phillips, who is the Economic Development Director. As we go through this presentation, we will save some time to answer your questions, but I think with this exposition, you will have a lot of the questions answered, and you too will see the value of bringing this deal to the city of Pontiac. And with that, I'm going to introduce Matt Gibb.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate this opportunity, as always, to be part of this great team at the City of Pontiac with all that's involved. Certainly I want to encourage everyone that as we've done in other town halls, that if you do have a question and you post that to the chat room, we do have some excellent staff that are more technology savvy than I am, and they'll be grabbing those questions, and Lynette and the team here will make sure that we try to get as many of those answered as we can. As the mayor alluded, this has been a saga for the city. It has been really a long process, and what we're here to talk about today is really a new birth and a new public-private partnership for this wonderful asset in the city. All of us recall the concerts on the rooftop and the great activities that have happened there. And it's important to be very clear, very transparent, and very real, as we said in the invite, about what is this deal? There's been so much communication happening and so many different aspects of what is really happening here and what are the dollars that are being involved and who is doing what and who is getting what. And because it's been put out there in media sources and on people's blogs and on radio programs, it's important that you as the public really understand exactly what is happening. And so I'm going to present briefly here around these four main questions. So what is this settlement? Now, a lot of you have heard the nuts and bolts of it at prior town halls and in prior meetings, but I just want to briefly go through it. What's the city buying? What is the city really buying, and what are they selling in this aspect? There's been this very horrible take on this. Well, the city's selling something for $1 or for $1 million. It's just completely untrue. We want to make sure that the actual aspects of this deal are very, very clear. Who's going to maintain and operate and repair that garage going forward? And then how does the city use the plaza? And so we've broken these four questions to really set up what is this deal? What is the real deal that the city has? And so we have to understand that on November 1st, the city had a deadline to complete certain critical and necessary repairs to the garage as part of the Phoenix Center. The city was not able to make that, but we were able to negotiate a global settlement with the owner of Ottawa Towers and avoid going back to court. The city attorneys had advised the city that going back to court to fight it out as to what was done or wasn't done would expose the city to damages that could range anywhere from the original amount of the repair cost to all the way up to possibly 30 or more million dollars. And so a negotiation was had. We entered into a global settlement agreement with the owner of Ottawa Towers. And that settlement agreement resolves everything. It resolves permanently all the issues with Ottawa Towers. It means that Mr. Stevens and his companies won't be suing the city anymore. They won't have certain rights. They won't be taking us back to court. We're resolving all of those matters, and we're also extinguishing all of the easement rights that happened in that settlement. It's so critical to know this, that the reason we were in court was because these easement rights that were granted for General Motors years and years ago created these permanent rights where the city had the obligation to provide not only the parking, but to maintain the parking and operate the parking. And that's what really got into that big litigation. The city still owed Mr. Stevens $2.1 million as of November 1st. They still had an annual maintenance obligation. They still had all of these other obligations. We're getting rid of all of that. The global settlement ends all of that. There will be no more money owed to Mr. Stevens once this settlement is done. The total amount was $19.9 million, which seems very high. And it is very high. So the city sought a partner. And this is what is the city buying and what is it selling? Dearborn Capital came in to be the partner to the city. So in the settlement, the city is obtaining the rights to the towers. We've already obtained the rights to one of the school buildings that was owned by Mr. Stevens, because the whole goal is to completely resolve all issues with Mr. Stevens and his companies. And so we've already started to close on some of these things, but we get those two towers. So what is Dearborn buying from us then? Well, they're buying the towers. They're also buying 4 small pieces of property that are around the site that we've included in the purchase agreement. And they're buying that for $7.4 million. And so one of the big questions is, well, that seems very cheap. Why would the city sell them for this for $7.4 million if the city's obligation is $19.9 million? Well, they're doing more than buying the towers. They're buying the towers for $7.4 million, but they're also buying that original $16.8 million estimated repair bill that was due from the city on November 1st of last year. And so technically, Dearborn Capital is paying, once all of that is done, as the time will come and the commercially reasonable targets are met, they're technically buying the 2 towers and a parking lease for well in excess of $20 million. And so everything that you've heard that well, the city's selling this for $1 million, or the city's only getting $1, or this is a horrible arrangement for the city. Well, the city is assigning all of its responsibility by the termination of those easements to our new partner, Dearborn Capital. Now, some questions came up at the last council meeting. Well, there's another entity called Phoenix Rising Well, that's an entity that Dearborn has created that's wholly owned by Dearborn. It's the same entity, but every commercial development or any developer will always assign one entity to deal with. And that entity in Dearborn Capital, they're bringing $7.4 million to the closing, and they're also taking all that responsibility. So who maintains the garage? Well, this is what's pending before the council right now, is the Dearborn Capital partner that we've brought in will maintain the garage. This is the most critical aspect of this. The city had historically and under the agreements been fully responsible for all of the maintenance and all of the operation of that facility. And we're now assigning that responsibility to Dearborn Capital under the parking lease. So instead of having an easement right that says, city, you must provide us parking, all we have to do is say, we're providing you a lease. And under that lease, you get to use the parking, but as you use the parking, you have to make sure that it's up to code. You have to make sure that it's safe. And as that parking expands, as they bring more and more uses back into those towers, they absorb all of that responsibility. And the good news is that the city retains the ownership of the Phoenix Center, meaning we still own it. It's ours. We're giving all of the responsibility for how that parking is going to work, making sure that the cleaning is done and the maintenance is done and the operational standards are done. It's all contained within that lease document. But the city owns the plaza, they own the amphitheater, they own the Phoenix Center. And so what tonight's meeting is really about is moving into the next phase of we're going to close this deal on February 26th, which is a week from tomorrow. And so think about this for those that are watching and share this with your friends and neighbors. A historic milestone is going to happen in 8 days. In 8 days, we're going to close years of litigation, years of strife, years of mismanagement, years of everything is going to be closed on February 26th, next Friday. And we're going to sign and execute the final documents, including this lease agreement that's before council on Tuesday evening. We do need to get council to issue a resolution that says, Mayor, absolutely, you have the authority to include that lease as part of the closing documents and complete this saga. So that on February 26th, we complete it. But then guess what happens next? We get to plan, we get to design, we get to vision. Well, how could we bring a new life back to this plaza going forward? And so that's what tonight is about. Tonight is about to make sure that you have a very clear understanding of what the settlement is. The settlement is very clear. For $19.9 million, we are ending the saga of litigation and this very contentious relationship we've had with the owner of the Ottawa Towers and his other properties. We're ending that. We're extinguishing all of the easement rights that caused a lot of that. We're bringing in a partner that the partner is not only going to help give us cash to make all of this happen, but they're going to take that $16.8 million responsibility and absorb it into their own business planning. And the city gets out of the repair and parking and maintenance jobs. That's what the settlement is. So the city will close this. They've already started to close this next week. And so, Mayor, I'd like to turn this back to you and say, let's talk about the positives of it. The positive is and what's our mission? What's the next steps here, Mayor? And so I turn this back to you, Mayor, and I know Mr. Wan wants to share the vision of what Dearborn Capital, and just so it's clear in the public too, people say, well, how's Bob Wan involved? I'll answer that question for everyone and for Bob. Bob was, as he's been a long-term advocate of this whole project in the downtown and the whole city, he's the one that had the connection with Dearborn Capital, who has the capacity to come in and be our partner and take on this responsibility. And so he's here to talk about their vision as well. So Mayor, back to you with this. And you know me, I can't keep my mouth shut. So I'm here to answer questions, and I may have a few thoughts on the excitement of the next step as well. So back to you, Madam Mayor.
All right. Thank you, Matt. And you did an excellent job, I think, of setting the scene for showing the contents of this deal. Now, when we originally presented the idea to council and they accepted the global settlement and the purchase agreement, we were supposed to close earlier. But as I said, I wanted to make sure we got the best deal for the city. And actually what we have negotiated, and it's taken a lot of your time, I know, a lot of man hours, a lot of attorneys, to make sure that we had the best deal for the city. And with this deal, the way we have conceived it now and have it ready for presentation to council, again, for their agreement and concurrence with the lease for operation of the garage, that now we have no co-borrowing, right? We have no mitigated payments on any way. We have no risk to the city because this is now a cash deal. This is not something that we're doing on land contract. So that makes it much more assured, much safer. And also we're getting out of any possibility now, as we had been before, of any judgment levy to the residents, correct? And of any increase in taxes. This is certainly a win-win for the city on all the tangible things that we can look at. In addition to the fact that you made point of, we get to contain this and continue to own this as an asset. So we're not losing this like we lost the Silver Dome, like we lost Lot 9, like we lost the wastewater treatment plant, like we lost all the downtown parking lots and so many other things. This is a win because we're in a situation now to say this is an asset and to revitalize it and to keep this as a beacon of the center of the city. Not only that, but this black cloud that's been hanging over us and hanging over me for a number of years. And so this is certainly a win-win for the city. And not only the tangible things are there, but also the advantages of the public-private partnership, which is equally as important for me. And those are the things that help the city to achieve our strategic goals. And here to affirm that is Bob Wan, because as he has talked to the council, has talked to the downtown businesses and talked to the citizens and the stakeholders, he has always maintained the same kind of vision. He was one of the stakeholders of the Congress of New Urbanism stakeholders meeting that we had for a whole weekend. I was able to get $100,000 grants to bring in the urban planners who helped us envision what we might do with the city development. And it included the Phoenix Center as well as the downtown. And Bob Wan was there to help to shape that vision and the consensus. I'd like to, Ken Brown, if you would show the pictures that we have here. Many people have thought what might happen to the Phoenix Center if we gained control of it again and could develop it. And these were just some of the conceptual ideas that came out of the Congress of New Urbanism. And you see that these are some far-fetched, but it shows the kinds of thinking it can go into when you have the kind of vision to create something that really makes this a destination, revives this, to have the kinds of events that people have paid their tax dollars for. City of Pontiac citizens paid $60 million for this, and it shows what it might develop into. This is another concept. And this, of course, is a concept that shows how the Phoenix Center area might be connected to the downtown and to the neighborhoods. So these are just some conceptual ideas, and Bob Wan is one who's had that vision, who's helped to shape that, and he's here to affirm that. And I'd like to hear from Bob, your vision as you share that with the attendees to this meeting.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Matt. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to everybody today. Certainly, you know, we hear so many rumors in this small town here that bounce around. It's nice to be able to clear the air and make sure that the truth is heard. So first, it's not my vision at all for this. It's not even Dearborn's vision. Now, Brian Locke, my partner, and I at Dearborn were fortunate to be able to participate in the Congress of New Urbanism. In fact, back in 1993, I had the good fortune of working with Mark Nikita and Andres Dewani, the famous and famed architect who came to town with his entire team from DPZ out of Miami. They came first to Birmingham back then and gave us a plan called the 2016 plan for Birmingham. And I watched over the 8 years that I served there on the Principal Shopping District Board, the transformational effects of having walkable streets, cities or sidewalks that were cut so that a stroller or a wheelchair could roll down them so that seniors could walk without tripping, how good lighting on buildings and clean window and storefronts and contiguous sidewalks and flowers and farmers markets transformed a downtown that was dying after Somerset Mall opened. So when we had the chance, and Mayor, your vision to bring CNU here a few years ago and have the whole community come around in those charrettes over the 2 weeks that they were here, this vision for the Phoenix Center really came out of that. That's what brought United Shore to town. They saw what could happen to this property down there. And I think everybody knows that we worked hard to try to bring them into downtown. I believe that what will happen once we take control together with the city of this asset and bring greenery and shrubbery and lights and cleaner facades and maybe all kinds of other exciting things to this, just some new energy that we're going to find other companies that want to locate in downtown Pontiac. After all, we're an opportunity zone. We're walkable downtown. We have all the things that that a city wants to have. They're here and they're contained in our downtown in the center of Oakland County with great access to the train. Nobody ever talks about our commuter rail. So, you know, that's not my vision. It's not my partner's vision at Dearborn Capital. This is your vision. You paid for it when CNU came here, and we had the world-class architects, both local and international, converged on this city. We had over 300 architects and urban planners that came and shared in this vision. It was presented downtown as being a case study for what could happen with an old parking deck. I've had the good fortune since that meeting to tour parking decks literally all over the world now and see what you could do with a little bit of paint and a lot of lights and some greenery. In fact, you know, one of the things that we're very excited about, if you've ever seen that video of people actually snowboarding off the side of the Phoenix deck in Green Bay, Wisconsin, they just took a bunch of dirt, made a hill out of the steps that we have there. What if we had a hill like they showed at CNN? So that's the stuff that we get excited about. I'm excited about filling those buildings with new companies and employees, using that amazing cafeteria that's on the first floor that GM built, and maybe doing a food incubator in there. We've had a lot of initial interest on what could be, and that's what we want to hear from the community. What should we do with these buildings? What can we do with an oversized parking deck in the center of an amazing downtown? It's been, for me, Mayor, 9 years since I bought my first building here. And I've stared at these buildings and longed to see this moment come to pass. So we're excited to be here with you today.
And you make me more excited just to hear you talk about it too, to carry that vision on and to help to pass that along, that feeling of that excitement that we're at the transformational stage here. We're at a point in history in which we can make something very important happen for the city of Pontiac. And it's great to have good partners who do that, who share that with us and have the same kind of consensus for the path we should take. That brings us to the next part of our discussion here, and we'll turn into a kind of a conversation as we go forward. And that is the other intangible parts of having this kind of public-private partnership, that P3 relationship, which can yield so many benefits. So Matt, you have some slides here. Let's talk about some of the other intangibles that we can bring in that are part of the strategic goals that we set out in the platform for the city of Pontiac.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. And for the public, they might be thinking, well, you know, what has to really get closed next Friday? What types of agreements have to really be done? The public-private partnership that we contemplated and we placed in the purchase agreement that Dearborn executed and we executed really contemplated a working relationship, one where we would all come together, we would share what is the voice of Pontiac, what is really the vision of Pontiac, not just Dearborn Capital or me or you or anybody else, but really what is the voice of all of Pontiac. But we started to kind of come up with some ideas on what would be those new plans or what would be those new ideas. And some of the things that to get the thinking started would be what type of jobs and apprenticeships could really happen here. You know, we clearly are building into this the ability to use Pontiac-based businesses to not only provide professional services, but how could they, you know, any business really be engaged here? If it's a food business, how do they become a vendor when the Plaza gets going back open? Under enrichment and growth, you know, we've talked to, you know, local restaurateurs and chefs, quite frankly, that said, you know, there's this big kitchen in the Judson Tower. Could it be an incubator for, you know, local chefs to strive? And, you know, could there be an opportunity for, you know, we've got some of the best food around, Mary. Just look at the weight I put on during COVID, all the carryout I've gotten from Pontiac, you know, chefs, right? So, you know, could we get, you know, special rates for Pontiac-based organizations to be able to utilize space or utilize those things? And I know that, you know, Bob Wan and his team and their background have already started to brainstorm around, you know, could there be, you know, specific opportunities for the use of certain space in the towers? We never had these opportunities before as a city. The city was always somewhat beholden to the owner of the towers, whether it was GM or, you know, the owners that have had for the last decade. And all we were told was, fix the deck, fix the parking, spend money. Well, now we've got an opportunity to say, well, how could we incubate things together? And we've got a partner, as Mr. Wan just said, that really wants to look at that. There's ideas of sledding hills, and could there be a new library in the downtown area? We've kicked around the idea of could we launch a special capital fund that would capture portions of revenue? We're going to be working with our partners in naming rights, in sponsorships and other things as this comes back on board. Well, how can we best capture that as a community so that we've got resources going forward? I know Lynette has been really working on grant opportunities in other areas. She brought in this beautiful grant to help us rebuild the team to be able to bring in grants, right? We talked about that earlier today. And can we utilize something like that to really increase our thinking around, hey, who do we know and how can we really generate this? This is the opportunity now that is in front of us. And so, what are the opportunities? The opportunity is to plan, right? Think about if we took this as a big municipal center. Take one of the towers, take big portions of it. There's already the state of Michigan there. Could the county come and bring resources? What could the city of Pontiac provide in there? We know that we've got universities that are looking at this now. Really, for the first time in years and years and years, we now have people calling us and saying, hey, the city's doing this dynamic, transformative, historic transition from being beholden to litigation to opening this opportunity. How do we become a part of it? And so we've got universities that are looking. This is the idea phase, right? New plans and new ideas. And you notice, Mayor, I put this, and for the public, what's Pontiac Voice? That's a big blank, not because there's not ideas, but because we want to hear all of those ideas. We want to now build as this goes forward so that the next phase of what the Phoenix Center and Ottawa Towers and that whole downtown area is, and Bob can attest, there's people who want to build housing, there's people who want to do all kinds of things. And so Pontiac's voice really needs to be there. It needs to be, at the table. And so this is what comes next. And I love this shot. I know people have used it before. I love the fact that this was the old life of that top of the Phoenix Center, but you know what? It could be the new life all over again of what's there. And I want to see this at the Phoenix Center. I want to see this at the Amphitheater. And maybe it's named something different. Maybe it's the United Wholesale Mortgage, who knows, right? Who knows what could be out there? But this is the step we're at. It's what's next. We need to gather everyone's ideas and input. This is all going to blend itself into a memorandum of understanding that will be our public-private partnership agreement between us and our partner. That document will guide this. It will have the ideas. It will say that we're all working together towards this common goal. And where we're at right now is we need to find a place and we need to start. And so it's going to take a little time. It's not something that by next Wednesday, we're going to have this dynamic partnership all defined, because we need to hear from everyone. And so that's the stage we're at right now. And I've got lots more to say and clarify, but I don't want to belabor that, Mayor. So I'll turn it back to you again.
I know a lot of what we're doing is giving out real information. But in addition to giving out real information, to correct any misconceptions, to show you what the strong deal is what you've done a good job of doing, Matt. But it's also to inspire the thought of what this can become and what this can be the center of. For example, you've talked about how this can be the catalyst for so much other development. We've talked about that in the CNU vignettes that were done and the prospectus that was done by Bob Gibb, who talked about the retail value of this by having this done. We've also talked about the other kinds of projects that are synergistic with what this can become. For example, last week, we had the director of Mdot, Paul Ajiba, come to town, and he talked about the fact that this Woodward Loop reconversion that we've talked about for 25 years and how much that can invigorate downtown and the central area and connect it to the neighborhoods is now going to be a project that he's put on his design board. That's huge. That's huge messaging. And the headline of that meeting that we had in the town hall, in which I invited many stakeholders, was that this time it will happen. He put that on the board. So we're going to be part of that. And we're bringing in all kinds of stakeholders, just like we did before, to be part of that visioning and have their input. So this is as much about inspiring input from others to see the other things that this can catalyze, and this can be the start of. And the memorandum of understanding that you talked about is equally as important for me as a document when we sign and we close this deal as the actual dollars and cents, because it's the other intangible projects that are important as well. And you mentioned some of those. Let's talk a little bit about jobs and apprenticeships that we have built into a number of our other development agreements, how that fits into the picture here, and how that creates jobs and workforce development. Matt, Bob, do you want to lend to that discussion? I think people need to hear what this deal also brings in terms of those factors.
I think it's unavoidable, Mayor, that when you take an asset like this, a 7-acre parking deck with 2,600 cars, and you start remodeling that you're going to create jobs. There's tens of millions of dollars in investment that need to go into these largely vacant buildings right now. And that we know at Dearborn that it's going to take a lot of money and a lot of labor and a lot of sweat and a lot of people out there working to make this happen. Certainly we want to work with local companies, local people that don't have to commute far to come to work. And then when we fill up these buildings, and the one tower is completely vacant today, that's a lot of workers to fill an office building like that. And anybody that thinks that this is any small task, take a standard house of 1,000 square feet, multiply it by 500. That's the heat bill right now. That's what we're talking about working on. So there's a ton of investment. There's a lot of weeds to be picked, a lot of paint to be thrown, a lot of lights to be hung. And we certainly want to work with the people of Pontiac to make that happen. So,
Mayor, one of the commitments that we've talked about with Dearborn and quite frankly with lots of the other concepts that have started to call our phones is utilizing the Pontiac jobs pipeline that you were able to create and move forward, but really model the concept as you alluded in our other development agreements, where we really pledge a commitment to providing notice and utilizing local resources. We got great local resources in Pontiac, our Main Street program, the United Way, the other, Lighthouse, other resources that can push the opportunities out. And then through that memorandum of understanding, hold ourselves to the commitment that we'll give an opportunity for Pontiac companies and Pontiac workers to have those opportunities. And really, this is forming that stronger commitment, whether it's a construction job, whether it's a security job, whether it's an architectural job, whether it's, all of those types of professional level services. We've been excited to be talking about how that concept will roll, and we've got all those resources at hand already, and we're excited about that.
You know what, if I could chime into one of the things that we're really excited about, we've talked about a lot, is that habit trail, the tunnel that connects the Phoenix Place today, the senior tower that's there, hundreds of seniors living in that building that are in an island today, completely unconnected. And it would be so simple to open those doors once the park on the top is secure and safe again, to allow them to get out on a sunny day or a not so sunny day and walk the top of that deck and get some exercise in the sunshine. That's the kind of thing that we've envisioned, seeing you talked about, and that we hope can happen relatively quickly here.
That whole Woodward Loop area can come to life again, not only with the reconfiguration that the Mdot director is working to design, but also we have announcements now of a number of events that are coming, with Pontiac now seeming to become a destination city, a new narrative created about Pontiac. For example, Motorbello will be coming here. That Woodward corridor will be very interesting. And also American Speedway will be coming a few days later. All things car, not to mention the Dream Cruise, which will probably have some visualization this year. In addition to the fact that Roadkill powered by Dodge, they may be coming back again this year. They've had a proud history of having events here. So that Woodward corridor is not only going to be the limit for that, but it's also going to be the conduit for that transportation hub. And that offers a lot of opportunities for our businesses, small and large, to have a part of that and to be at the table. And as we negotiate those deals and bring those kinds of events to town, I'm going to make sure that they know who our small businesses are, and there will be a ripple effect. These kind of large international events not only have the footprint where they are, but also it spreads out to the rest of the city for the vendors and the caterers and all the people who can be invigorated and supported in terms of economic development. So there's many other ways that this kind of project can be the catalyst for economic development in the city. I know we've talked about that in other sources. Let's talk about it a little bit here to give people an idea of the kind of value that this kind of project can bring to the city in so many ways. As a catalyst, for example, stirring other downtown development and bringing other businesses to town. We've seen that actually happen and the kinds of businesses that have come now as we diversified our economy. We've got a United Shore, as you mentioned. We've got Amazon, which is opening up and is going to bring at least 2,500 jobs. So many jobs are coming in from all these different kinds of entities. And this is sparked by the narrative we have. This is just another peg in that kind of narrative as we invigorate and revive the Phoenix Center.
Mayor, one of the interesting aspects, the Woodward Loop Reconfiguration project that Director Adjaba from Mdot so excited about, and quite frankly, everybody that's in the downtown, my office is in the downtown as well, we're over the top excited about that project. It's based upon accessibility and walkability, meaning any vibrant downtown area of any city across the country must have accessibility. And so that whole project is going to do what they call calming the traffic, slowing it down. You know, past your window, I know where your office is, sometimes those cars are going 50, 55 miles an hour, and that doesn't create accessibility and walkability for a downtown. So what's the catalyst of the Phoenix Center to piggyback on that? Well, imagine filling that second tower and having another 1,000 workers every day that have that accessibility. What does that do to the businesses downtown? What does it do to Little Mo's and experimentation and all of those businesses that are there? The Alley Cat. I mean, we just created a new social district, and you know, you helped that vision, and the council approved it, and now we've got a social district in the downtown. Well, what would it mean to bring 2 towers full of people and, you know, new lights and new activity at the garage? So it really forms a catalyst. But I hate to ask, Mayor. We've had some questions pop through. I know Lynette's gathered some questions, and I'd like, if you don't mind, I'd like to maybe field a couple of those questions and start to get a little voice of the public that have joined in. We've got so many participants.
Absolutely. Let's get into that. Let's get into that. One of the questions that came through was the deck from this town hall going to be available? Yes, I'd like to tell people that this is being will be broadcast on our Facebook Live, both the city page and the Mayor Deirdre Waterman page, as well as the fact that it will be shown on our cable government channel, which will be available. And it will also be on the YouTube channel that the city has. So there's many ways for people to see it. If they weren't here for this particular Zoom presentation, they can also see it at those broadcast and social media resources. But we have some additional questions. And with that, Lynette, I know you've been fielding some questions and you have some that the audience would like to have. We'd like this to be an inclusive process. And so let's see if we can answer some of those questions now. Lynette?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Matthew. And thank you, Bob Wan, for that great presentation. As everyone can see that, you know, several people have been really involved in bringing this complex deal to fruition. And, you know, our esteemed panel, you know, presented the details of the deal. But we do have some questions how this impactful private partnership can have both an economic and a community development impact on our city of Pontiac. So one of the first questions, and Matt, you really alluded to it, but it's how will the Mdot's plan for reconfiguring the Woodward Loop impact the renovation of the Phoenix Center?
Well, right now, the Orchard Lake goes underneath the Phoenix Center, and that Woodward Loop project is designed, at least preliminarily designed, that the western side would become the main north-south route, and that the eastern side would be reduced in scope to create more accessibility. But what that means, and Bob was talking to it, is right now the Phoenix Center exists somewhat as an island. It's not open to the downtown area for walkability. On the other side, people drive in from the south side and get into the garage where they're working now in that tower, and then they leave and they never really experience the downtown area. It's very hard to get someone leaving work at 6 p.m. to decide, well, I'm going to go out and south and then back north and do the loop and around. And so that redesign of that project will allow greater accessibility, not only for pedestrian activity, during the day, but for all of those aspects. And so it really creates a catalyst around the Phoenix Center that the access points would be redesigned. Bob, do you have a quick thought on that as well, as to how that Mdot reconfiguration will help?
A lot of cities were victimized by that bad urban planning back in the 1960s. Again, the first thing that Andres Duany did in Birmingham was take the ring road around downtown and make it two-way traffic calm it. And when I first came to Pontiac, I couldn't find my way into downtown. And we've heard that from so many people. It's a moat dividing the neighborhoods from the downtown. There should be no separation between our neighborhoods and our downtown. People should be able to flow in very safely and securely from the neighborhoods into the downtown. And this is the opposite today. So I think it's the number one thing that will actually spur the downtown. I don't think of the Phoenix Center and the Ottawa Towers as a catalyst as much as an anchor, a boat anchor on our downtown right now. Bringing it to life takes that anchor off and frees the downtown to become part of the Ottawa Towers and the Phoenix Center. So I think they're hand in glove. They both have to happen at the same time. We need that road opened up. We need people walking across Woodward Avenue without being fearful for their lives. We've watched people go the wrong way on Woodward so many times. And I've watched people with strollers and wheelchairs and with canes try to cross that road. It's like watching a game of Frogger, and it's just got to end. Making it two-way, making it safe for pedestrians will really make this town pop. So it's a priority, and I'm glad you've taken that, Mayor, as such an important priority here.
Well, we've been waiting to get that done for 25 years. And I do credit this Mdot director following the principles of our Governor Whitmer, who supplied more money for roads and for that kinds of highway management, has brought that prospect. Many Mdot directors have said, well, let's do it. But he was the first one that actually is going to fund it. It's a $24 million project, of which the city's match will only be $500,000. So that's amazing to bring that to the city. We're finally going to realize that. Many have thought about it, but we're going to realize it with the support of Mdot. And they have said, Mayor, all I need is your letter of support, saying the city is committed to it. We are, and I thank all those stakeholders, so many people, elected officials and all, I thank all of you who also signed on to that letter of support and have sent your letters that we forwarded on to the Mdot director, and he's ready to start the design phase of that project. That's going to be huge for the city of Pontiac. What's our next question, Lynette?
Thank you. And we're getting some positive feedback. People are really excited about, this great opportunity. Matt, I'm going to direct this next question to you because you touched on the numbers and the breakdown. But here's the question. What is the total cost to Dearborn Capital to purchase the Ottawa Towers when the city of Pontiac transfers ownership?
All right, I'm gonna clarify this. Mayor, you titled this town hall The Real Deal on the Phoenix Center, and I'm gonna give everybody the real deal. So when we went to council between November 1st and November 17th, now that was 16 days that we had to put together this comprehensive deal, and it's a really, really, really good deal for the city, and it's well thought out. The city has an excellent legal team. I saw George Contis is on, the city attorney, Anthony Chubb, has been helpful. That arrangement was the $19.9 million settlement. On November 21st, the council approved a purchase agreement with Dearborn. Now here's the catch to the public. Charles Stevens, the owner of the tower, said, I'm only going to settle and I'm only going to do this if we close on January 4th. So think about that. November 21st was the Saturday before Thanksgiving. And then we have a whole host of holidays that all of our different ethnic communities have, and Christmas and New Year's, to close on the 4th. And so in order to do that, there was a clause that was negotiated saying the city needs to join Dearborn in co-borrowing money from its own equity fund. So there's this equity fund called T2 that's out there just to meet the timeline. We had 7 weeks. And so we cooperatively said, we're going to get anything we can put together to close this with Mr. Stevens and Ottawa Towers and close on January 4th. But we very artfully negotiated an extension. We took advantage of that extension. We moved the closing deadline to February 3rd, that 30 days. And within that time period, we were able to really roll up our sleeves and say, let's keep pounding on this. Let's keep negotiating for the best interest of the city. And so by the time we got to February 3rd, and there's lots of activity, there's been people spreading all kinds of false ideas about what all this is, we were able to eliminate that one aggravating part of this deal and get rid of the concept of being a co-borrower of anything and securing that co-borrowing with the land contract. And so we had everybody agree, Mr. Stevens and his companies at Dearborn Capital, to say, we're not going to do those things at closing. So it's a huge benefit for the city. And so all of that has gone away. So what's the cost to Dearborn? What are we saying? I go back to what I said earlier, Lynette. Dearborn Capital is contributing $7.4 million as a partner to that global settlement agreement, but they're also taking on the $16+ million of long-term capital repair and maintenance obligations for the garage. So from a numbers standpoint, what we're selling them and what they're buying is they're paying $23 million on paper right now for their interest in this project. And so those that would say, oh, the city got shorted, they're selling this to them for 7.4, and I'll be honest with you, the whole thing only appraised at $13 million. So the fact that they're coming in and saying, we're willing to sign documents next Friday, that I know the council is going to approve on Tuesday night, that lease agreement, because without the lease agreement, they will not sign those closing documents next Friday. There's no way that's going to happen, because who would buy 2 office towers with no parking? It's never going to happen, right? So we get that done. They are committing us. That's why this vision is so important. Mayor, council, residents, businesses of Pontiac, we're willing to sign on for that $20+ million exposure. Bring that cash of $7.4 million that you need to settle with Charles Stevens to the table at closing, and we're going to partner with the city and move it forward. So that's the real deal, folks. We eliminated the bad. We took advantage of these extensions. We kept rolling up our sleeves and pounding on that agreement. Mr. Stevens has cooperated with us as we've gone through this. And now next Friday, the city will spend the rest of the escrow money that put aside. And guess what? The city doesn't have to bring a check to the closing next Friday. The city utilized its earnest money that was set aside early on in this process, and we don't bring a check to the closing next Friday. We have negotiated this so that the city only moves forward to the vision. So sorry for that long-winded answer, Mayor, but this was titled The Real Deal. That's the real deal, folks. It's not what you're reading in newspapers. It's not what people are putting in their radio shows. That's the real deal of what we're doing. I'm super excited. It's been just a tremendous process to get it to this stage.
Thank you, Matt, for clarifying that. And I just want to make sure that we have those points clarified. Matt, you were saying that the city is out of the parking business that we had lost $400,000 a year, as much as that every year, as we look back historically. We're out of that because it will also be the responsibility of our equity partners to maintain and to operate the garage portion. Is that what you're saying?
And I am, Mayor, and I want to make it very clear to the public that some people have said, oh, well, then every repair is going to happen to that garage in 6 months. It's not. What we've negotiated with our partner is they are responsible for the repair and the maintenance and the operation of all of the commercially used and public aspects of that facility. We're out of that business. We're no longer responsible for all of those. They're taking over that responsibility. And as they find tenants and uses, and if they create a library, whatever they do, Mayor, they have the full responsibility of every parking space has to be safe, it has to be secure, and it has to be maintained. And that's what the language that's contained in that parking lease agreement that's so important as the final step to get approved on Tuesday before we go to closing next week.
And you're also saying that the city no longer has the liability to pay for the repairs and renovations that weren't done over the last 12 years. That estimated $17 million, that no longer will have to be borne by the taxpayers.
The city, yeah, the city is out of that as well, Mayor. The only thing that we've reserved is when we get an idea to have a really cool concert, guess who has to pay? Well, the city has to pay, but I'm going to be buying tickets. You're going to be buying tickets. We probably break even on that. But you are exactly right. Right. That big $17 million immediate obligation that was imposed by the court and was due on November 1st, the city's now out of that. No longer. We will not look to the taxpayers to say, you've got to raise your taxes so that we can meet that $17 million judgment. No more, Mayor. That's all gone.
And the biggest thing is the city is no longer under the obligation for the easement rights, that we no longer have somebody holding a hammer over our heads, that we had to provide parking for whoever parks in that buildings around. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct, Mayor. The Dearborn Partners, the reason we have this parking lease is they now become a tenant of the Phoenix Center with rights to use that parking. And it's a long-term lease. I'll give you, it's a very long-term lease. They have the right to extend that for a long term, but we want them to extend it for a long term because that means they're maintaining it, they're using it, the towers are full of people. And so we no longer have to provide that. We lease them that space and they maintain it and they use it and they grow and they become vibrant. It's the way it should be, Mayor. We should not be in the parking business. So we are out of that business.
But the property is ours. We still maintained ownership and we still remain full operating maintenance for the Plaza Amphitheater. That means we can book it, we can bring festivals, we can have fairs, we can have events. That still belongs authority to the city. And that is a win-win any way you put it. So I just want to make sure we underscored that. You did a good job. And I just thank all those who have participated in making these negotiations. I know you had to do that pretty quickly, but we're proud to have very strong capitalized partners who were able to pull off this kind of deal in the time you did. Bob and all your partners, as well as all the attorneys and the people who helped to put this deal together in a way that was so secure for the citizens of Pontiac. With that, you have another question, I think, don't you?
Yeah, and just to be respectful of everyone's time, and again, Matt, thank you for really going into detail on that question because it was asked several times in the chat, which brings up one of the questions that you really touched on, and that's what are the plans, the future use for the plaza and for the amphitheater?
I'll start with that. And one of the things, I just created some of the vision that was there from the conceptual drawings. But of course, that's something that the citizens will have a right to have input about. I created some vision of that when I lit up the tents a few months ago. And that served as a beacon. People could see the lighting as it rotated throughout the city. So that just shows, created the vision of what could be there. And it brought back nostalgic memories of all the performers and the things that happened on that plaza. But there are many more things that we can conceive. And one of the things that I've done is to create a citizens committee, communities, leaders and stakeholders and all, that's called Next Year at the Phoenix Center. So there's many ways people can participate in these projects. Not only that, if you want to participate that way, but also there are those who are on this Mdot committee as we get ready to do the design phase of what that Woodward reconversion is going to look like. We want to participate with Mdot and partners in doing that. You can participate that way. And also, I've got a host committee with Motabella coming and some of those other events. We want to make sure that we welcome them. And although they're choosing Pontiac because this is a pandemic year, as I've met with them, I had an introductory meeting, we want to put on such a red carpet that they will bring it back here and make Pontiac the regular place to come. So that's my vision. And we've got a host committee that's going to help to make sure not only that we have the ripple effect so our businesses and citizens can realize the benefit of this kind of international event coming to the city and the ones that follow, but also that we can reap the benefit of them seeing Pontiac as a destination place to relocate those kind of events.
Great. Mayor, I'm going to turn it back over to you. We've got some contact information. There's some, most of the questions have been addressed and many positive comments about the excitement and the buzz and the opportunities for activity for a robust community here in the city and downtown. So with that, Mayor, I'm going to turn it over to you. And if you want to have any closing comments.
Well, I just want to thank all those who attended. There are many people who have the interest and progress of Pontiac. You've seen the progress over the last number of years, and many of you have been part of it. To all of you, in whatever way you participate in that, I thank you. Pontiac thanks you, and Pontiac is better for that. I thank you for your faith in me in terms of the leadership that it's taken to bring this together. It's been quite a journey, quite experience with that. But the fact that we're making that kind of progress, that Pontiac has benefited, that Pontiac is a better place for it, that Pontiac continues to grow, is tremendously rewarding to me. And I see from all the comments of the people who realize the difference this has made and applaud that. So I invite you to be part of that. I thank all the people who have been here as part of this panel and who've attended. Thank you, Matt. I know how many days that you have spent just negotiating and how many documents you have read and have rewritten that I've had to proofread. So I know that you have been steeped in this and a goodwill to make this the best deal you could for the city of Pontiac. Thank you, Bob, for being the kind of equity partner that we can trust in, have faith in, and have confidence that you understand the kind of vision and the route that we want to take to better the city of Pontiac and to benefit the citizens. And thank you, Lynette, for taking my invitation to be Economic Development Director. We got a lot of economic development going on in the city, 40 building products right now, so many business support retention plans that we have, and that you are at the forefront of that. So with that, I would like to say good evening to you. I hope we have provided a lot of useful information. I would like to particularly recognize the elected officials are here, particularly the council members with whom we have been in partnership and have been in collaboration to bring this to you. This has taken a lot of work and working together. Council and mayor have brought this vision and this opportunity to the city of Pontiac. I see here both Councilwoman from District 2, Megan Schramsky, and I see also our council president, Brent Williams. So Tuesday, we will be bringing this to you, council members, for that final document that we have brought to you, that we have described here today, and we're on our way. And anytime that people tell me that I can sign a winning document and not have to bring any money to the table, I think that's a good deal, and I'm ready to do that. All right. All have a good evening. Be safe, be well, and pass the message on. I'm proud to serve you. Thank you for coming. Good evening.